with a knife video for you. Today we're going to have my full review and discussion of the other expensive Spyderco for 2019. This is the Spyderco Dmitry Sinkovich collaboration, the Drunken. Now, this knife serves a couple of things. First of all, this is the first Spyderco Dmitry Sienkiewicz collaboration, and that's been a long time coming. Everyone else has done one, so, I wonder if Spyderco is feeling like, the last one picked at a dodgeball game or something like that, and so they finally remedied that by doing a pretty nice knife with Dmitry. The other thing that this knife could serve as, if you're a big fan of the Spyderco Spidey Chef, but want something a little fancier, a little more refined, not much more, but a little more, perhaps this knife is for you as well. All right. The other thing is, if you just love Spyderco and you want all their models, if you're a huge Dmitry Sienkiewicz fan, or if you just look at this knife and it seems like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, hey, you're going to love this. And let me say this right off the bat. For the people that this is for, okay, for the people who are going to be drawn to this, this is a great offering. If you're watching this and you just want a high-end knife, you want to experience, that high-end fit and finish, that high attention to detail, that high level of quality, buy a Riot, buy a Wii. There's lots of high-end knives out there. This isn't necessarily the one for every single person, but for the people this is for, I think they're really, really going to enjoy it. All right, so getting all that stuff out of the way, the last thing I want to say about this is I did get this from White Mountain Knives. They had some in stock when I was filming this. I don't know how long it'll be from filming to actual posting on YouTube. So you'll have to go over and check if they have any in stock or not. That's about all I can do for you. If they don't, they have lots of other stuff over there, and you can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF to save 10% on whatever you happen to be buying, and that does help the channel. All right, so it's kind of a win-win. Now, let's get into some of the details here, starting off the way we always do with size and weight. And I do think this is a pretty perfectly sized folder, and that may be the thing that appeals to some people. If you are a guy who loves the Sebenza, and maybe you've got a Hinderer and you've got a small Sebenza, and you want something that's really hits a sweet spot in terms of size and weight, I do think this knife is pretty unique in that regard. So this knife is 8 inches exactly, 3 7/16 on the blade, 4 5/8 on the handle, 3 3/4 inch grip area. So this is not a big knife, but it's also not a small knife. It's a really nicely sized knife that carries really well, only weighs at 3.75 ounces, so you don't even notice that it's in your pocket. But when you open it and go to use it, you've got a highly usable, full-size knife that can do just about anything that you would want your folding knife to do, and do it pretty well. And so for that reason, I really, really like this. And I can definitely see someone who, let's say, normally carries a small Sebenza, thinking something just a little bigger, but no heavier, something that is, just a little more substantial. This could be a great offering for you. Or maybe you want something to fill that role of like the 3-inch Hinderer, but you want a little more cutting edge, okay? Or maybe a large Inkosi is just a little, or large 21 or a full-size Hinderer is just a little too much for you. Anyway, there's lots of places I think this can fit. And in terms of size and weight, I can really, really see that being a drawing card for some people who want something really high-end that really satisfies that desire to have something special in your pocket, but also delivers it in a package that is super, super carryable and usable. All right, so there's size and weight for you. If you haven't figured that out, I think size and weight is basically perfect on this knife. And so much so that I think that could actually be a drawing card for some people. Let's take a look at this sheepish foot blade. We've got a little bit of belly all the way along, sort of an extra drop point, Wharncliffe-y type of thing going on here. It's not a true Wharncliffe, really not a true sheep's foot either, but it's that style. Flat grind. Beautiful. Now let's take a look at this blade finish, because it is really, really nicely done. It's a mirrored stonewash, and they have done a great job with this. S90V steel here, which is a great steel, very high end. Going to be a little tough for some people to sharpen, but that's completely fine. If you're buying this knife, I think you're pretty proficient at sharpening anyway. The blade bannering is not too obtrusive. We got just a little spider there and a little sign over here that you can see, a Sienkiewicz design, and that this is made in the Taichung factory. All right, I like this blade a lot. It's useful, the steel is fantastic, and the finish is absolutely beautiful and completely in keeping with a knife at this price point. So The blade is a real win and certainly one of the pluses and one of the drawing cards to this knife. Let's move over to the action here. This is, of course, a titanium frame lock. You can see that if you're looking at all. We've got a nice big pivot. Now for action here, or I mean for washers, let's see if I can show you. Come on, focus. There you go. You can see we've got some phosphor bronze washers in there, which is one of the things that kind of draws me to this knife. I do find the sort of incessant trend that every high-end knife has to have bearings just a little tiresome. I think there's recently, what's Shirogorov? Anyway, there are a few Shirogorovs that have washers, and I really, really like that. I like that, the Hinderers and the Inkosis or the Sabenzas and stuff like that have the washers, and this is another offering, and that's one of the things I actually didn't buy this right away. It wasn't until I watched somebody's review, and as they were talking about it, they pointed out that it had washers and had really nice action on washers, and that became sort of the final straw that broke the camel's back, and was like, I've got to check one of these out because I really, really love the option of a knife on washers, and I do think it makes it a more suitable EDC blade, just because it's going to be very, very reliable, and just, you're not going to have the same kind of challenges that can come along with a knife that has bearings. How is the action? Very accessible lock bar, very comfortable, very, very smooth. You can see, I can't really show you that on camera, but I probably can show you. There you go. It does drop shut very nicely. Okay, I can Spidey flick this fine. I'm not sure if everyone's going to be able to because the hole is not totally accessible. It does roll open with the thumb pretty nicely, and if you want to, you can thumb flick it as well pretty easily. So overall, I think the action is quite enjoyable on this, and again, it's probably, it's part of that, knife geek type of stuff, but I just geek out for sure over a well done phosphor bronze washer pivot. I just do. So yeah, very, very impressed with the action on this knife. As I said, the only sort of downside is I don't think everyone is going to be able to Spidey flick it. You can see how I can sort of get the corner of my finger in there and flicks out just nicely. But if maybe you don't have, maybe you have I don't know, not everyone probably can do it. So let's just leave it at that. Moving on to the handle, and we'll probably spend a little more time on the handle because there's a lot of really, really cool stuff going on here. The first of which you can see right away, which is that milling pattern, carried as well over to the titanium side. I love this pattern. It looks fantastic, and better yet, it's highly, highly functional. When you're gripping this knife, it feels so secure and so good in hand, largely because that pattern is so well done. So that's the first thing that I've got to say I really, really enjoy. Very quickly, I'm going to show you inside, depending on how good of a look we can get here. Look, I'm not going to take this knife apart for this video because I've got a whole video that I will link in the description box down below that has a full disassembly of this in comparison to a couple of other knives. So I'll link that down below if you want to see the internals. This is heavily, heavily milled out, and I really, really enjoy that as well about this guy. Okay, on the carbon fiber side, I want you to take a look in there as well, and you can see that it does have a nested stainless steel liner. So a number of points that I really wanted to touch on with this handle. All of those things I really, really appreciate. We also have this nicely done backspacer here that's just a little bit proud of the handle here at the back, where they've also integrated a lanyard hole, and you can see it actually is depressed inside a little bit. So that hole is bigger than it looks just in this direction, because if you come in on an angle, it's a little more open. So I suspect with a little bit of effort, you could easily get some 550 cord through there if you are so inclined. You guys probably know I am definitely not so inclined. I'm not, I don't really love that. Although I will say this, I could see, this is the lanyard off of my Curtis Cruise. You could see that would actually work decently well on this knife too. Most of the time, I really don't go in for the lanyards though, so that's just my preference. Yours, of course, may be different. The pocket clip is something we do need to talk about. There are a couple of ways this could have been done better. One, they needed a little more room in here for, if you're wearing 511s or something like that. It fits, by the way. I have carried this in 511s and it works, but you've got to just, you've got to shove it into the pocket a little bit more than I'd like to see. And of course, having the clip cross that lock bar cutout is not the best choice. It would have been better to either move the lock bar cutout internal, or notice, by the way, it's still milled out there, or change the placement of that pocket clip just a little. Like had they rotated up here so it sat up here, I think that would work a little better. Anyway, I'm sure partially that's a design choice. It does look good. And let me add that there's a very, very easy fix. Okay, so pop this off, bend this up a little bit, bend it back down. It's not focusing. There we go. Bend this up a little bit, bend it back down, and you can fix it quite easily. You can go and take a look at Nick Shabazz's video where he specifically describes how he achieved that, and that it was very straightforward. And so if you want this knife to be just your forever carry and to be just the perfect knife for you, I think that's probably a worthwhile change to make. If you're just a collector and it's not going to be carried all the time, I would probably just leave it as it is. For me, I've got a collection of knives. I don't carry this every single day, and so I didn't change it because I didn't feel the need to do so. As I said, if this was going to be my one and only EDC knife, I would have made that change. All right, let's go ahead and, oh wait, I've said all these things about the details on the handle, and I haven't even mentioned how it feels in hand. It feels really, really nice. I especially like the relationship between the handle and the blade. I always appreciate when a blade is sort of shoved out toward the front here so that when you're cutting, you've got good access to a flat surface. This one does really, really well along those lines. Bit of nice jimping there. Flat spine so that if you want to really, you can get your thumb way out here and get some extra control if you ever wanted to do that. But it does feel really, really nice in hand. There's a very, very minor hot spot perhaps coming from the clip here, but it's, I've been carrying and using this for a little bit, and I haven't, there's never been a time where I was cutting something and thought to myself, oh man, I just can't complete this cut. It's too uncomfortable. In fact, most of the time, the way my hand lands, the lock bar kind of is in this crease. Not the lock bar, but the clip is in the crease of my hand anyway, so I really don't even feel it. All right, so those are all the details on the knife. As you can see, I'm pretty happy with this, guys, okay? There are a couple little things that we touched on that perhaps could have been done differently. Others have touched on those as well. Let's go ahead and get to some comparisons. Now, I have done a full video talking about how this lines up with some other high-end pieces, and that might be a video you want to watch if you're just looking for a good high-end knife. There are so many out there that it's hard to say this is absolutely the one that everyone should buy, and that wouldn't be appropriate to say. But go watch that other video. You'll see a full comparison and discussion about how this measures up to some other higher end stuff, but everyone's pretty familiar with the Inkosi, so I wanted to throw that in for a size reference. I've also got a Rat Model 1 here. Whoops. That again is shown here because everyone is familiar with this knife. You can see it's a significant difference in size. Let's grab Spyderco Amalgam more as a comparison. I want to bring this in because this is the knife we're used to buying from Spyderco. Okay, we're used to buying the knife that comes in from, say $125 to $200. Spyderco has tons of great models in that price range. They've got tons of great models in other price ranges as well, but this is sort of their stock and trade. This is going to be a bit of a departure for them, and it's not that I don't think they should do it or that they don't have the chops. I think they definitely do. But the challenge for them, I think, is to get their buyers that are used to spending under $200 to make that jump to the higher price point for those who aren't super serious. Now, I didn't have much that was size comparable to this, but I've got the We Knives Malice, and this serves a couple of roles here in the comparison portion. The first thing is, if all you're looking for is a high-end knife, okay, you want something that has that extra degree of fit and finish that is just really nicely detailed, super high-end materials, great action, all of the things that we enjoy from a high-end production knife, okay, this probably isn't the best option, right? There are tons and tons of knives out there, knives from Riot, knives from We especially, that are going to come in at a much lower price point and that are going to satisfy all the knife nerd cravings for great action, for nice fit and finish, for a cool design, right? All of those things can be had for less than $400, right? There's no need to drop that kind of money. All right. And so I wanted to bring the malice in more for that reason, because it's a similar size. It's not a similar weight at all. This is a little bit of a tank of a knife here. Okay, so now that we've gotten all that out of the way, hold on, let me fix the lighting just a second here. There we go. That should fix it. The sun's moving around on me, and so I had it set up right at the beginning of the video, but you can see it's changed a little. Anyway, what are my overall thoughts? Is this a knife I would recommend? Is this a knife that everyone should go out and buy, or is this one to pass on? Well, I think neither one, okay? For the people who are going to love this, it's a great knife. I think it's a very, very well put together folding knife. I think if you're the person who wants that one high-end Spyderco, this is a great option. You know, you carry your PM2 day in and day out, but you want something to carry on special occasions, to weddings or church or whatever, and you want it to be special and expensive and unique. I think this is a fantastic option. If you're a Dmitry Sinkovich fan and you want something from him and Spyderco, again, this is a great option. If you want a high-end knife that's a little lighter and has great materials and just here's what I think makes this knife interesting. It is all the things that I want from a high-end knife, all right? But it also has a lot of the things I want from a user knife. And so this is, I think, a really nice marriage between those two camps, okay? So it's a high-end user, if that makes sense. Sort of like, you know, and that's why I thought I wanted to make the comparison to the other high-end users, the Hinderer and the Sabenza, and I think I had an Arius in that video as well, and a Riot Torrent. Anyway, that's a really cool offering, right? It's nice to see a knife that's offering us lots of high-end, interesting details, but is also made to cut stuff and just be usable from day to day. All right. So yeah, if any of those things appeal to you, then yeah, this is a highly usable, well put together, nicely sized knife, and a lot of people are really, really going to like it. My final conclusion is that yeah, really well done for the people that it's really well done for, and for others who, you know, are looking for something else, this is probably not going to be the knife for every single person out there, but it's well done and I enjoyed it an awful lot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.